to today's Senturus webinar series. This topic today is Cognos licensing, get more for less. Today's agenda, we'll cover some brief introductions, we'll do an overview, we'll discuss Cloud Pak for data, touch on some pricing, we'll wrap up with a quick Senturus overview and some additional resources, and then we'll turn it over to a live Q&A session. Joining us today is Rick Markison. Rick has more than 4 decades of experience working with IBM software and hardware solutions, both as an employee and as an IBM business partner. He's deeply familiar with IBM's licensing structures and products, and he has a unique perspective for how to maximize benefits and create financial efficiencies within IBM. My name is Todd Schumann. I'll be your host today. I run the install, upgrade, and optimization practice here at Senturus. You may recall me from previous webinars, Fast and Furious 38, Redshift Drift, and Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Bad Database Design. All jokes aside, we've got a great presentation for you today. So Rick, take it away.
Thank you, Todd. I appreciate the time and the opportunity to address all of you. Good day, depending on where you're at. I could say morning, afternoon, evening. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about Cognos and doing modernization. And for those of you who are interested in where this goes, we're dominantly be talking about licensing with IBM products and some of the things you can do to take advantage of some of the newer technologies that may be available for your environment. If you have any number of IBM products, and obviously Cognos being one of them, and that's what we're going to focus on today, but there's a lot of other products like WebSphere and DB2 and MQ and whatnot. IBM has a modernization path that goes into what they used to call all the Cloud Pak products. They've changed some of the names, but the dominant thing we're looking at right now is moving Cognos into Cloud Pak for data. And we take a look at a lot of things when we do that. It's a licensing change, but gives you a lot of benefit. One of the things we're going to talk a little bit about is deployment. Most of you have probably deployed all of your applications in Cognos in a virtualized environment. Containerization will be touched on a little bit. I'll show a couple things on that. That's really important. But if you move and modernize from Cognos to Cognos modernization in Cloud Pak for data, you're going to see a lot of benefits. And depending on what your situation is, it could be any of the ones on the right. There's a lot of them, and there's even more than I had time to put on there. So what we're going to look at is taking a look at upgrade eligible products from IBM, Cognos being one of them. We take a look at what impacts the cost of this product and what happens when you do an upgrade. So the foundation of all of this is the assumption you already have Cognos today, either user or viewer or administrator or whatnot. For that, you pay an annual subscription support fee. IBM's current policy is if you are fortunate enough to be into the discount mode, not paying IBM list price, then your S&S will go up at a 10% increase every year until it gets to list price. And depending on where you started, that may be never, depending on if you were in the 50–60% range, because you can't ever get back to list price. But if you were in the 15–20–30% range, you might already be back there. But what we do is we take a look at the cost that you have today, and then we compare that to what the uplift costs, because IBM does charge a fee to go to the upgraded products. And we'll talk about what that is and what that impact is and what we can do to help you mitigate that. But when you do it, you'll see the solid black line, which was your subscription support, now would be replaced by the dotted blue line, which is a standard normal upgrade. And that would be what your pricing algorithm looks like. We look at the uplift, we look at the consolidation that happens, we look at the capacity components of it, we look at the deployment and some things that might happen there. And when you do all that, our target is to take all of the customers that we work with and show them how they can do the upgrade and end up with the dotted green line, which says that you're going to pay the same thing that you were paying to do the upgrade as you were paying to be on subscription and support. So we want to take the cost equation completely out of the decision whether or not to go. And you'll see some of the benefits you have if you go, but we want to take money out of being a a roadblock. Then as we go through the scenario and you take a look at it, you might find that things change over the years, and as you start to use some more of IBM's tools, if you continue to do exactly as you're doing now or using the same volumes and velocities you have now, you may actually see a substantial reduction in your cost year to year. And so that's our target, to get to the same as your SNS, and then hopefully move to a point where you see that you can actually see some cost changing in your licensing and hardware support. One of the things I want to point out just very quickly is containerization does end up being a part of this. It doesn't have to be something you have to do right now. Some of you may have looked at containerization already. Some of you may already be doing some containerization. The important thing is how do you go there, and what do you do to get support to do the containerization? One of the things that's driving this licensing change for IBM is their acquisition of Red Hat. And part of Red Hat, which is OpenShift, is IBM's containerized product. You can do containerization with your applications today by downloading Docker, downloading Kubernetes, and getting a lot of free shareware, open source code. But when you start to do work with it, there's a lot of things you have to start thinking about. Okay, some things happen. You need support. You have to buy it. You have to call in and get support. You might want, you go into a production environment, you want to have that, have everything set up right. So there's a lot of things that happen. Well, if you do the download and go to open source, you're kind of in the blue line where there's a couple things that come with the product, but most of it you're on your own to pick it up. If you move and go to the IBM Red Hat OpenShift, then all of those components now are supported and provided by the IBM Corporation. And that takes an awful lot of pressure off of you finding and managing and maintaining all that. And it also takes the cost out, because the cost of Red Hat OpenShift is included in the upgrade. And so it's something not to be concerned about. It might not be something you do right away, but when you go there, it will be a change of life. Okay. So today you have Cognos, and you have specifically Cognos alone. If you do an upgrade to IBM's modernization tool, then you pick up a lot of other products. The primary piece is the Cloud Pak for Data Enterprise, which includes some components that are important to Cognos and analytics, like data virtualization, the Cognos dashboards, some of the Watson components, et cetera, all of which can be used to help augment and enhance your analytics component. And there's a lot of work to be done on that. This is not going to be a feature function scenario on that, but you pick up additional licensing. You also pick up some tooling that helps you do some containerization and some things that help move your product around, and you have the ability to mix and match products within the set. So from a Cognos analytics standpoint, if you do an upgrade, it comes with a lot of components. You modernize to a cloud native architecture. Although this can be run on-prem, it's not something that needs to be run on a cloud base. You don't have to run it on AWS or Azure or IBM Cloud. You can, you certainly may, but you don't have to. This can be run on-prem or in the cloud environment. It becomes your choice, but the licensing allows you to do it. You can modernize, especially if you're going into containerization, at your own pace, and you'll see how IBM supports that from a licensing perspective. There's a lot of new functionality that's available in the analytics side from an IBM perspective. They're doing some Cognos with the business planning and a few other things. They're putting all of their efforts into doing enhancements to the products in the Cloud Pak or the modernization product set. So the standalone products are going to be good. They're going to be supported, but the new things, the kind of really jazzy things that will help your business, will most likely be added, and they do that by adding additional functionality in new products that sit beside it. One of the things that does happen that's really important through this is it is a licensing change when you go to Cognos modernization. Today you have a license agreement with IBM that says Cognos, and you have all the details that says what you can do within that. When you get Cognos modernization, it's a new license agreement that says you now have access to, under the covers of the contract, Cognos and Cloud Pak for Data. So it points you now to two additional documents, one of which you already have, which is Cognos, and the other is Cloud Pak 4 data. And it tells you what you can do and what you can use it for and how it's measured and all of those things. But essentially, you have the ability to continue to use Cognos exactly as you're using it today in this licensing environment. You don't have to do anything until you're ready to make changes. But when you're ready to make changes, there's a lot of new enhancements that come along. Okay. An example that I've heard different people talk about is just what happens when you do deployment of Cognos Analytics. On the left side is what you're used to. That's how you normally deploy Cognos. And the native installation, that's today's standalone product. If you move into a containerized environment, you see an awful lot of things start to happen that will really be time saving and effort savings for you. Automated upgrades, alerts monitoring, change management, so on and so forth. So there's some things that go into the deployment side that make your analytics better and much easier to manage, so that if you start to expand and you continue to improve your product set and your offerings, you can do that in a much better environment. From a licensing perspective, the conversion gives you two things. And I'm going to show you the example of a customer that's got 366 authorized users of Cognos. When I migrate them, when they change, they go from 306 authorized users, that's all they have today. They end up with, for example, if they want to stay just running as they are now, they keep the 366 authorized users, but they also get access to 34 VPCs of Cloud Pak 4 data, which provides, as we said before, the Watson, the data virtualization, and so on and so forth. And those are used inside your analytics as much as you want. Another example would be when you want to migrate. Well, when you do that, they basically give you a dual licensing, so you can start migrating your bare metal stuff, your existing environment, to a containerized environment, and you don't have to worry about license counts. If you had 366 was your count, that's what you end up with. You don't have to go buy another 50 to be used as your development licenses to do the migration. So IBM duplicates all of those licenses. This is just one example of what you can go do, but IBM's got very, very flexible about how they allow you to work with the product and how you have the ability to move forward into a more modernized environment. So when we take a look at deployment, this is where money starts to take place, okay? In your typical environment today, in a virtualized scenario, you tend to stack applications into one virtual environment that have like characteristics. It might be the version of the software you're running on, it might be the database, it might be the applications, but you stack them in individual virtualized silos because you don't want to contaminate or interact with another silo of virtualization because of things that could happen. And so over time, this is a lot better than having one big machine running everything in it, but you tend to isolate applications and you tend to load them on in a virtualized environment that's unique for what you're working on. The thing that most customers have found, and this is a study that's been done over time, that when you do this, there's a tremendous amount of wasted memory, wasted CPU utilization, wasted equipment. That hasn't been as big a deal as it used to be because hardware kept getting less expensive, and the cost of the resources it takes to manage and maintain all of your different applications and make sure that one doesn't interfere with another one inappropriately is expensive because the people costs kept going up, and so it was easier just to keep throwing more and more hardware at it. Well, when you move to a containerized environment, that all changes because what happens is you take the applications and you move them and wrap around with a container and containerize all of the components with that application needs to be run, and it stays inside that container, and it isolates itself from everything else that's running. So you now have the ability to run it the same way as we showed in the first one, where I have 8 virtualized environments on a 16-core machine. I can still run 8 applications or 8 containers on a 16-core machine, but I also have the ability, since they are isolated, now to start stacking and utilizing my hardware much more efficiently. So when I start to modernize and I move into containerization, I can now run more on the same amount of hardware, which starts to change my licensing. If I'm in a VPC environment, which some of you are in VPCs, Authorized users, that doesn't change so much, but you get to change the cost of the hardware. Because if all of a sudden now I had a 16 core machine that was required to support my applications, I now can run it on a 4-core machine. I suddenly have 16 or 14, 12 cores worth of machine available to use for other applications or other things, or just complete depreciation if I want to. So by containerizing, I have the ability to start to use my equipment more efficiently, my software licensing more efficiently. I can then, once I've done that on the same equipment or same licensing, start to do things like maybe increase my volumes and velocities by expanding my volume and throughput, or I might have the ability to add new functionality. So I have new pieces I want to use, like Watson or like virtualization. I can use them on the same equipment, and I don't have to go out and buy a lot more equipment to be able to support that. So it starts to change the entire financial leverage of what you're working with. Okay. What I wanted to do now is take you through a real quick financial analysis example of what it looks like, and then we'll open it up for some questions. The Cognos, it's important to note that the Cognos analytics modernization is something that will do a lot of things for you. So if we look at the costs, okay, in this example, this is a live customer, a real customer that had the 366 users. They had 8 administrators and 358 authorized users. That would convert into the modernization tool plus 34 VPCs of Cloud Pak for data. Now, if without any of our special sauce put into it, you'd see that the normal upgrade, because IBM charges a percentage up from your last paid, in this environment would be costing the customer close to 23% a year. Now, the value that you get out could easily be far more beneficial than a 23% increase. But even that being said, sometimes it's really hard to get the budget gods to get some acceptance and get some changes. So we go through and put some of our own incentives back into it, and we really reanalyze this and say, well, how can you do this differently? And in this same customer, we're able to take their Cognos and run it so that it's cost the same for their existing product, and until actually, because of some things that IBM does on the uplifts every year, you run into a natural decrease by sometime around the fifth or sixth year, and in this case, in year number 6, you start to see a reduction, and it will be less expensive from there on than staying on the subscription support. Now, there are other things that can happen, like, for example, in this particular client, they have a lot of other IBM products. And so when we combine all of those together and we take a look at how those pieces work and what they can do, you see that there can be some substantial savings allocated. So depending on what your situation looks like, our target for everybody on this call is that we would like to show you how to take your Cognos to where it doesn't cost you anything from a licensing perspective to do the modernization, and potentially you'll save a lot of money on it. And that's kind of the scenario that we go through. Each customer obviously is different. You should expect the results that we give you after we do the analysis for you, and not before. Important things on how do you get there. It's a very, very simple process. You basically get together with Senturus. We go through and do the analysis for you. We show you what the pricing will be, give you a firm contract or firm quote. You sign a quote, and then you go on. And the nice part about it is nothing changes at all if you don't want it to change, but it only starts to change when you want it to change. At the same time, the best part is you can then do those changes at your convenience rather than waiting for a renewal date for an upgrade. Okay, so that's essentially the licensing story. It's fairly simple. It's fairly straightforward. We'd love to take you through it, an example with your own business, and we'll talk a little bit about how we can do that.
Just a couple slides to talk about Senturus, what we do. Senturus provides hundreds of free resources on our website in our knowledge center that aren't comparisons. We have been committed to sharing our BI expertise for over a decade. Just go to senturus.com/resources to check them out. We've got some upcoming events. Join us for these upcoming webinars. You can register on our website using Query to improve Power BI performance on December 15th with Patrick Powers. And Cognos 11.2.4 is going to be released very soon. So we'll have an IBM product manager with us on January 19th to show us the new features in that. So just click those links if you're interested and want to register. A little background on Senturus. We concentrate on BI modernizations and migrations across the entire BI stack. We are a full spectrum of BI services, training in Power BI, Cognos, Tableau, Python, Azure, and proprietary software to accelerate a bimodal BI and migrations. We particularly shine in a hybrid BI environment. We have been focused exclusively on business analytics for 20 years now. Our team is both large enough to meet all your business analytics needs, yet small enough to provide personal attention. And we are hiring. If you're interested in joining us, we're looking for the following positions. Our FinOps consultant will be part of the new cloud cost management product and practice. You can check out the job descriptions on our site and email us your resume at jobs@senturus.com. And Q&A time. We've got a few questions here, and if you have a question, feel free to put it in now. I'm going to just kind of feed these to you. Question number one, is there a general IBM offering or is it only available through Senturus?
This is a general IBM offering. The offering through Senturus is the analysis and the things we do to get you down to $0 cost. Okay. The product itself is a standard IBM offering that can be purchased from IBM directly or any other business partner. The net result though is how do we get it down to $0?
Okay, thank you. Another question here. If we do these upgrade, what kind of changes do we have to have IT make?
Initially, nothing. As I mentioned before, it's a licensing change where you have a new license agreement that points to the existing license agreement that you have, which says you can continue to use Cognos exactly as you're using it today. So you don't need to do anything. I have a customer that did an upgrade, was on another IBM product, it was on ODM about 2 years ago, and they did not want to do any upgrades. They didn't want to do any containerizations. They wanted to do nothing, but they were able to increase their capacity by doing it. So they made the change and they continued to run ODM exactly as they ran it. A year and a half later, they came back and said, hey, we're starting to containerize everything. How do we do this and how do we manage it? And they were delighted to find that they already had licenses of Red Hat OpenShift, supported them, and they then started doing the things they needed to do because they were running performance issues, and they've now fixed all that, and the system's running really, really nicely. But it took them 2.5 years now since the time they bought the upgrade. So the first year and a half, they did it exactly as they did, and they could have continued that until the product is no longer supported. But there's nothing that the IT department has to do initially. Only if you want to start using new functionalities like containerization, or you want to start using some of the new application components, do you need to get IT involved.
Okay, thank you. Another question here. Is it possible if we still have support, but it's on 10.2?
I believe 10.2 is still supported. I think all of the versions, assuming that the way the licensing works, again, because it is a straight continuation of the license you have, if they supported version from IBM, then it will continue to be supported. There's no change. You don't have to go to 11. You don't have to do any of those things. Now, the scenario that's coming up in January is new product functionality, which obviously you always want to take a look at, but IBM tends to support older versions until they tell you they're not, and when they're not, they usually give you, I think it's at least 1 year notice that says they're doing it. So as long as it's a supported version, it's included in the licensing.
Okay. I have a follow-up to the first question about is it an IBM offering? So it says, without Senturus, there's a 15 to 30% uplift cost, question mark?
Yeah, IBM's standard offering on this is that they take your last S&S invoice, and you have an uplift of 35%. And so what we do is we go to work on that to get it down to show that it's the same as what you'll be paying for S&S now. But yes, that's the standard offering from IBM Direct and all other IBM business partners. Now, understand one side note on that. having now done this for 4 decades plus, IBM does do special bids and there are unique considerations. And so that's a very generic kind of standard out of the box kind of a deal. You may have, 100,000 users of Cognos and you're paying millions of dollars and IBM's decided to give you much steeper discounts, but that's a whole different story. I'm talking about what the normal business cycle is for IBM. Okay, well, good. Thank you very much, everyone. We appreciate your time. Happy holidays. It's getting that time of the year. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving and happy holidays for all of you that are going to be enjoying time off.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rick. If anybody does have a question in the next couple of minutes, feel free to put it in the chat and we can get back to you at a later time. Okay, thank you.